From Oscar Steakhouse, inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in a Las Vegas hotel casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
All right, welcome back to On the Corner of Main Street. We're in Oscar Steakhouse, where we like to be, and I'm with a good friend of mine, John Connelly. Gary, take it away with your introduction.
Joining us today is the CEO of Interblock Gaming, as well as a leading figure in the gaming industry with over 25 years of experience. Under his leadership, Interblock has become a pioneer in electronic table games, driving innovation and transforming the casino experience worldwide. Welcome, formally, John Connelly to On the Corner of Main Street.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
Thank you for joining us. We've been doing this now about almost 4 years. So Gary and I become podcast veterans. We do it because we love meeting new people, talking to people about what's happening in town, and you're certainly at the cutting edge of that and a big part of the gaming industry. And I know I just saw you at G2E. Have you recovered?
Almost.
I'm sure after that you probably have to put your feet up for a few days.
Yeah, for sure.
Prep, the setting.
I call it Hell Week.
Hell Week?
Yeah, it's Hell Week.
You have a lot of people in town for it?
Yeah, we have probably close to 150 people. We use it as a combination of offsite for senior leadership because everybody's coming to town anyway. So the week before, we're glutton for punishment. We do a offsite the week before and then dive straight into G2E and then recover.
I'm not sure you've ever talked about G2E on our podcast, but maybe you is probably the best position to talk about. What is G2E?
Well, I guess that you're here. I mean, depending who you ask, you're going to hear a lot of different opinions. For us at Interblock or for myself, it's an amazing opportunity, especially since we're out of COVID now. There's a little bit of a dip there for a while.
Yeah.
Coming out of COVID, we have somewhere in the vicinity of 850 casinos represented through our booth in 3 days. So if you really want to touch the global gaming industry, and if you have a specific, agenda or initiative you want to launch or present to the industry in a very short window on a broad scale, there's probably no better venue in the world.
It stands literally for Gaming Expo.
Yeah.
G2E, Gaming Expo. Okay. And you were, just before we got online, you were about to tell me about what the big takeaway was from G2E for you guys. What you want to talk about that? I mean, I'm sure we'll get back to the agenda in a second, but I was very interested in that.
Yeah. The way I was summarizing it to some other people recently is, for decades, the industry really is known for slots and tables. When you ask people, you're going to Vegas or you're going to a casino, you play slots or tables. And we worked very hard at Interblock, almost a decade ago now, to create a third category, a third leg of the stool, and this category called electronic table games, ETGs. And I think, I'm very proud of the team, and I think the industry now, when you ask them globally, what do you have on your casino floor? A lot of people would say slots, tables, and electronic table games as well, ETGs. So, but
it's like a whole new category.
A whole new category, correct, which is interesting. And what caught our attention is after COVID, there was still a lot of people that were coming to casinos and not really coming onto the casino floor. They were coming for shows, restaurants, nightclubs, amenities, spas. And so we wondered, what are these people socially doing for gaming? Are they doing any types of gaming? And we went online and started doing research. And obviously with what you see in New Jersey and the proliferation of online gaming, we started seeing in YouTube or in various online offerings, tens, if not hundreds of millions of hits a year for other types of gaming, which we called amusement or those types of activities. And so we said, I wonder if we could find a way to bring those types of activities online to the gaming floor in a RNG certified manner. So about 3 years ago, we began working on that quietly. And then at this year's G2E, we launched what we consider the fourth leg of the stool, the fourth category called Amuse, AMUSE, for amusement. And since then, the feedback we've received from the industry on a global scale has been, at least for me, like nothing I've ever experienced. Biggest operators in the world, from Caesars, MGM, Penn to
Plaza
especially, especially Plaza, Macau. They've all said, when can we have?
Are you talking about the horse racing game that's on the floor. It's similar to that. I noticed you guys are doing marble racing. Is that the same idea?
Yeah, and we benchmarked against the horse racing. We really studied it, the claw machine from Amuse, and we said, why is it that didn't really take off? And a lot of it had to do with simple math. There's definitely demand. If you see some of those horse racing games today around the world, they're full.
Yeah.
But they don't make the money a casino finds acceptable in a lot of cases. So we said, well, we need to design games that have math taken into consideration, meaning game cycle time, house advantage, the ability to obviously have a return to player that's entertaining, where the player wants to come back. So we launched at the show. We had 7 products. There was an 8th that we didn't have in the booth, couldn't fit it. So by next summer, we'll have 8 different products that are really different looking in many cases, different demographic we're targeting. That when you go and walk past it on the floor, it's designed to say, what is that? And pull you onto the casino floor. And I think players, when they walk up to it, are going to be there to have fun, not necessarily there to win $50,000. And so the feedback we've gotten, even from, ironically, even from people like Wynn, which back in the day, who would have thought Wynn would want to put amusement games on their floor?
I think I only saw the marble game. I saw the roulette. There was 2 versions of roulette that were sort of new, fun. I didn't see all 8 that you're describing, but the marble one, sign us up. We'll take the marble game. But so the marble game is RNG?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, Gary, you never went to G2, but their booth at G2E is like the scene. It's like a nightclub. It's funny when I get to the booth, they're like, who are you with? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just here to see the games. They're like, it's like the nightclub. You have to say, I'm with, I know John, let me in. It's almost like there's the velvet ropes. It's all secretive. It's all, unlike every other booth where you can just walk up to it and explore. Yours is much more, it's cool. It's like a nightclub. It feels like a nightclub.
We try to protect our innovation. As you know, there's a lot of people that come to these shows looking to copy, and we work really hard to innovate and put a lot of money and energy behind that. So we like to, as best we can, really protect that innovation and decide who gets to see it and when.
Right. It's you mentioned COVID, and it's pretty interesting, but I didn't even think of this. Do you remember after COVID, we had to take the dice off the craps table and clean them?
Yeah.
And we had to clean the cards and the chips. It was part of our rules for reopening. But actually, ETGs remove all of that need to, you got to clean the buttons, but you didn't have to clean the dice, the cards, and the whole thing. It's pretty interesting.
That's probably, COVID was a catalyst for Interblock. We over doubled in size during COVID.
Wow.
Globally, 30-year-old company at the time, and doubled in about 36 months due to COVID, just because of things that you described. And I think a lot of players tried ETGs for the first time and then ended up staying. So it was obviously a very sad situation for the industry, but at least for us, there was a little bit of a silver lining.
Well, why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, I guess let's kind of get back to the top. So can you kind of share your journey to how you became CEO of Interblock and a little bit about yourself?
I hate talking about this because it makes me feel how old I am. I started in 92 with the founder of G-Tech, believe it or not. Was supposed to go to Wall Street and do some financial activity, and got, as I think a lot of us, once you get into the gaming sector, it's hard to leave. So I never left, and from there stayed on the lottery side for several years, VLT components, and then somewhere around 2002, give or take, I came over to the casino side, and have remained there ever since. And I guess I entered the casino sector with Bally around that time frame. Saw that through to the sale of to Ron Perlman at the time Scientific Games, which is now Light and Wonder. And from there, decided to try and, while I still had the energy, tried to, find a company in an area of the casino floor that I felt was still at its infancy, capable of bringing on new players, maybe a new chapter of gaming. So was familiar with a company called Interblock. At the time, a lot of people thought it was Intralot, which is another lottery company. Joined it, and
who owned it at the time?
So it was 2 gentlemen out of a country called Slovenia. A lot of people, Slovenia, just north of Italy, and became a partner with them back in 2015. And from then till now, just worked hard to grow that. Somewhere along the way, my partners decided they wanted to, they've been in a long time, take a check and cash out. So I went to Wall Street and found a private equity firm called Oak Tree Capital and partnered with them.
What year is this?
This was around, great question, right after COVID. It was around 2022, in that time frame, 21, 22, and partnered with them. And we decided to buy Interblock together from my original partners. And from that point forward, I think June of 22, it became a wholly owned entity of Oak Tree Capital.
And I think people are fascinated by this element of the industry. Right? Nobody really gets the behind the scenes on slot machines, how they're made, the creativity. We have had actually on our podcast, Gavin Isaacs, who I know you know well, and also David Lopez from AGS. So we've talked a little bit about it, but your games particularly are, for people that are studying it or know the games, it's pop craps, it's the stadiums. How do you describe them to people? They're electronic table games, but to the consumer who just sees them on the floors, are they considered like stadiums, pop craps?
Well, so we try to, I guess the best analogy is when you think about the slot industry, which is where I came from initially in casino world, you walk on a casino floor like yours here at Plaza, you have dozens of banks of slots. And you ask yourself, well, do you need that many? Why do you have so many? Why is there so many suppliers? And really, I think what most people would say is there's different demographics, different players for probably most of those products being offered. Some are steppers, some are video, some are high volatility, low volatility, time on device, poker, Keno. So when you have that variety of slot offering over the decades, it really started to attract a wider range of players. Well, you go back 10 years ago with electronic table games, there was a mechanical roulette that sat in the middle of a bunch of slot machines. And people say, well, why was that? Well, living the business now for a decade, it primarily related to the fact that it had a bill acceptor and a ticket printer. So it must be a slot. And so I think a square peg was put in a round hole about, 12, 15 years ago in the North American market with ETGs. It was treated like a slot for a long time, when really it was more of a table game, if not even a table game, a subset, meaning a new demographic. So we then, over the past several years, have expanded our offering into several different categories of ETGs, not just stadiums, not just the universal cabinet or that single player offering, not just, a mechanical roulette. We have dozens of different products now, just like slots, that are designed to attract different types of players. So that's really where we've evolved to.
And a big part of it is, do you think of it as the elimination of from the casino's perspective? We should do this because the customer wants it, or because it saves on the labor, a little bit of both. Why are people gravitating towards it, in your opinion?
I think it's everything you said. It's a combination of everything you just described. Technology is evolving, and I think the casino industry, due to regulation, has evolved at a slower pace than a lot of other segments around the world. I mean, if you look at, just other forms of hospitality, how it's evolved, whether it be movies or even the way you check in at hotels. You look at the online gaming space over the past 20 years, what's happened and how it's evolved. So I think the electronic table games is probably the closest thing to an omni-channel. It seems as though when you think about the online space as we know it today and the growth of online, multi-billion-dollar business in the past 20 years, the casino industry really is, traditional land-based side is really catching up when it comes to technology and what's being offered. The casino space online hasn't had chips. And people think, wow, you remove chips from a casino floor, players won't play,
Right.
Which I find very ironic, because people said the same thing about when you remove coins from slots. You remove coins from slots and go to Tito, you're going to go out of business. And you fast forward to today, Tito's pretty standard. I would say the same thing, we think about the next 5 years or so, technology is going to evolve in a manner that if we don't as an industry keep up, we're going to become obsolete. So I personally, and Interblock, we're very focused on creating what, that terminology lately that's called omni-channel. How do we bridge the online space and the billions of dollars being generated with the traditional land base? And people are like, well, is it a different player? Is it the same player? I think it's a combination of both. But I can tell you that money being made in the online space, if you look at New Jersey's pretty flat right now.
Overall.
Slots, tables, flat. But the good news is it's sustaining itself.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, flat to a little down. But yet the amount of online revenue generated in the state of New Jersey and Michigan is almost the same size, if not now bigger, than the traditional land-based revenue.
Right.
And it took them 3 years to do that, a little bit longer versus decades.
Right.
So how do you bridge that? And it's something we can learn.
I was just listening to a conference call about that, and they were talking about, I think it was Rob Goldstein from Sands was saying, big problems if you don't evaluate now the land-based versus the online. Everyone always said it wouldn't impact it. It sounds like in those states you just mentioned, it is starting to.
It's coming. I mean, Rob Goldstein, to his credit, you look at his floors, one of our biggest customers in the world is Interblock for automation, is Rob Goldstein. They really believe on automating and bringing a different play action and different offering to a new set of players. So anyway, that's what we're trying to cater to. And I think, luckily we've found a niche that seems to be embracing ETGs and technology, and it's growing.
I do think the land-based is actually, you said it's made strides. I still think it's pretty archaic. The one thing we do debate on is cashless coming to casinos, land-based casinos. That one I'm more worried about. That one I think would be a game changer in a bad way for the industry. Because if you have only one wallet, you're going to only play in one place. You got to have a multi-wallet that works, almost like an omni-channel, but a multi-wallet that works in every casino you go to. Otherwise, if you're an MGM customer, why would you ever come downtown and explore? And that's our number one, 55-60% of our business is unrated. So if those people, we don't even know who those people are. They're all on their wallets, digital wallets. We could lose all that business potentially.
It's another podcast. We as Oak Tree Capital and myself, we've looked at the payment sector for the past several years, and we haven't quite yet been able to figure it out and see where it's truly going. So we're on the sidelines watching, and as it evolves, I do think it's going to evolve eventually. Where and how that happens, there's others.
You mentioned Oak Tree. Tell me a little bit, because you were saying on the way up here, but what else are you looking at in the gaming space with Oak Tree that you can talk about? Or have already done?
Well, what we've already done is the past 4 years, we've created 4 verticals in gaming that we invest in, Oak Tree Capital and myself as a senior advisor. There's the supply side, such as Interblock. There's a route business. We have the largest route business in North America, privately held. We believe strongly in that route initiative.
You don't operate the pubs that they're in. You just do the gaming within the pubs.
Correct. Exactly.
It's a fascinating business.
Yeah. Not the pub business, but just the pure machines and the route operations. And then we also have, we started to get into the casino operations business. So in Mesquite, just north of Vegas, we acquired a couple of casinos in the past year and looking at several others at the moment.
Yes.
Not in Mesquite. We're looking Casablanca and Virgin River, 2 of the 3. Yeah.
I've charged my car there on different
Couple
occasions.
times on the way
to Park City.
On the way to Park City?
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then we have an online gaming business.
Isn't there a pink box out there as well? I think there's a pink box there.
At Casa?
One of them, yeah. There is
if there isn't one, I'd put one there.
There is
one of my favorite.
Well, that might be a business opportunity, but I'm pretty sure there's one, and they did one out there in Mesquite. I'll double check that.
Yeah,
but otherwise I'll connect them with you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Love that. So we have several initiatives, and I think, we see it's going to the industry seems to be, for various reasons, readjusting on whether it be operators or online. Everybody's repositioning for the next chapter, heading into 25 and, the next cycle. So there's a lot of things. There'll be a lot of acquisition opportunities on the market the next 12 to 24 months.
So speaking of innovation, what are some of the most significant changes that you've seen over your career, like in the gaming space?
Over my career, I think the evolution of online gaming has been fascinating to watch. I think you'd be complacent to not talk about that. So that's fascinating, and I think it's still at its infancy. So watching that continue to evolve and how that's going to impact other forms of hospitality and amusements and gaming is going to be interesting to follow. I think the casino industry itself, the traditional land-based industry, and you see the culmination of, for me at least, the lottery industry and the traditional casino supply side merge. Some of the largest lottery suppliers in the world eventually over the past 10 years have merged now with some of the largest casino suppliers in the world, which was fascinating to see. And I think it's a great case study to see, the lottery industry as the world evolved, what happened with the lottery industry, which was a huge industry, and how it is starting to merge with the casino supply side and even with some of the online supply side. I think that integration, both from an operator and a supply standpoint, I think we're going to continue to see that is what it feels like. And how you position yourself the next, I hate to say it, but I think the next 24 to 36 months, I wish I could say the next 5 to 10 years, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's the next 24 to 36 months. You're either going to get ahead of the curve and have a chance at coming out the other side where you want, or be far enough behind that you're going to struggle.
Wow. It's a big prediction. We might even still be doing the podcast by then.
Right.
We might be able to go back and.
This is a little off topic, but I think I don't know if we've ever talked about it. Do you guys foresee there ever becoming a traditional lottery here in Nevada? Like a state-run lottery? I mean, I know we have gaming everywhere, but do you see that traditional lottery actually coming to Nevada?
I think the only way you would see that is if you had, a consolidation to the point where the operators were also involved somehow in the supply side, which I don't think is ever going to, I shouldn't say ever. I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't see the MGMs, Caesars, Stations, Boyds, the major players in Nevada supporting something like that. It doesn't make sense, I don't think. So
gaming in Nevada.
Probably around the same time as you,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think the major players in the state, the lobbying groups, they're not going to go for it anytime soon. Yeah. Which, you just drive to the border.
Right.
You just go straight to the border.
Yeah,
basically, or just go play Keno.
It's true.
Keno's basically. Are you guys seeing any traction in the dealerless craps? How's that going? Because I think that's a really fascinating thing, because that really is replacing major pits, right? Replacing games in the pit. You had all the ETGs, which, by the way, they're reported as slot machines. Their win and handle goes reported as slot machines, right? But the crap games, I think, are really interesting. The ones with the monitors on them. How are you guys seeing traction on that?
So, post-COVID, again, we were in a casino, and as we were coming out of COVID, a lot of the traditional table games in the pits opened back up. Social distancing was slowly going away, and we noticed that. And, if we want Interblock to be synonymous with table game innovation, we said we need to start thinking about the traditional table game pit. There hadn't been a lot of investment or R&D in a traditional table game pit for decades. The shuffler was over 30 years ago. So we saw that as an opportunity to bring innovation. So we decided to do a couple of things. One, go chipless, not cashless, but chipless, and see if no dealer errors.
If I could interrupt for just a second. Sure. So back when I first started my gaming career, I was a table games dealer in Pennsylvania at Parks Casino, if you're familiar with them. They had opened up, when they first opened, about half of their pit was table games that had dealers, but in front of each player was a tablet. Are you familiar with? Yeah. Okay. Nobody else has ever heard of it. I've never seen it at another casino since. They took it out maybe about a year after. You guys were innovative
at Parks. You also had a Shaquille O'Neal big game there you tried for a while.
That was I think the first type of stadium pit there at the time. Was that Interblock? Okay. I never really fully grasped the concept of it, because you bought in with cash and then they gave you the chips, but it was on the screen. So it was almost like a hybrid at the time. And then they paid you out in chips. But I think that there was too much theft going on, because you had to actually there was a small screen in front of you, and you actually had to put how much the guest was chipping in for or chipping out for, and you couldn't see that on surveillance. There was a lot of theft going on. Maybe within 8 months it was gone.
That was the hybrid. And because of that and other things we uncovered, we decided just to leap in head first and not we call it the C table. It was an intermediate step using chips. And we decided, if we're going to do this, let's just go big or go home, as they say. So we went chipless. And not only that, we incorporated technology with live dice recognition, which is now coming out, that allows one dealer on a craps game versus 4. So if you think about it, if you have a 24/7 craps table, on average, if you're going from 4 dealers to 1, you're saving about $750,000 a year in labor. If it's if it's not a full pit, maybe it's 500,000. So labor savings on a craps product, not to mention the fact you just can't find dealers for craps right now. Good dealers, I guess. That's taken off because of those reasons.
Good point.
And so that was kind of the catalyst to what we call the smart pit, which we won table game of the year, or table product of the year, I should say, in 23 and 24, for the ability to do an entire pit without chips, using technology, using dealers, but the dealers can't make mistakes. If they do, the system shuts down, it protects you. So there's no collusion. We can rate players in real time, which was another holy grail item. How do you rate your players and make sure you're rating them correctly?
It's a huge issue at table games, at least for us. It's down to
human interaction, right? Human error. And it also attracted one of the highest occupancy products on the east side of the Las Vegas Strip by Caesars is the live craps product from Interblock, because it's attracting a whole new player base that always wanted to try craps, but was intimidated.
Yeah.
So they sit down, and now they don't have to roll the craps because they don't stand right at the table. They're sitting a little bit away from it, and they can pass. They don't have to be the shooter. They can learn, they can explore. So we find that
without the pressure of everyone judging you,
et cetera.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefits in the smart pit. We just put on Palazzo.
Do you buy in cash into the machine, like a slot machine? You put the cash in, or can you buy
either?
You can go up to the dealer and buy in
either.
Okay.
Yeah, most people do ticket in, ticket out. And so we just installed one at Palazzo. We're putting one in with MGM. Wynn just put a live craps. Believe it or not, the Wynn just put one in. So
I saw that, but so if I'm not mistaken, you can't buy that game. It's only participation.
Correct.
Which is 80-20 generally.
Sale is a
speaking.
4-letter word at Interblock.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
So we just in North America.
So really, the math is the fees better than the labor, and on the higher end, it's got to be absolutely better.
That's one of the metrics. The other one is, are you attracting a new wallet? And so we find a lot of new wallet. Like we just said, how many people come through your casino here at Plaza that don't gamble? They're coming here for being in Las Vegas, amenities. How do you pull that player onto that casino floor for new wallet? And I think the slot industry has been around so long, it's getting tougher and tougher. You can only have a machine so big, so wide, so many, signs. So how do you bring that new dollar onto the casino floor? And that's where I think the ETG segment has proven there is new money out there over the past 10 years that we can go after. And we're hoping that Amuse is another example of where there's a whole new category that's walking by casinos we can attract onto the floor. And how do you do that?
Is the ETG attracting a younger generation of players, or is it all over the place? Is it just new money coming in, or is it, going after some of the younger players who probably have never played table games before? Is it how is it looking?
What's your question?
Is it? I guess it's more like, are younger people attracted to these machines versus somebody who's been gaming for 15 years that are used to having a regular dealer?
So we're learning, but what I can share with you thus far is we've learned that a stadium product from Interblock is definitely attracting a more social, different demographic than a mechanical roulette. We've learned that the single player universal cabinet is attracting because it's a more solitary environment. You go at your own speed. That's a different type of player. So as we build out our portfolio of products, we're seeing all much wider array of demographics playing, from the younger generation to, quite frankly, just couples that are going to dinner wanting to get on a casino floor and not have perhaps one person go to a slot, another person go to a table and separate. They'd like to, have a date night, go out together, walk on the casino floor and have somewhere they can go together and gamble. So we're learning that, which is why, hence the love seats. Something that as small as putting a love seat in front of our products has increased handle dramatically because people now can sit down together rather than separate. So we're evolving and learning every.
I love that. He
week.
was telling me about the love seats on the way up here, and I was like, we need to put some of those in our stadium for sure.
Yeah,
it makes
that helps
sense.
a lot.
There's also like people just like the idea of being able to play at your own speed. See, I don't agree to the idea that young people, old people. I think it's everyone. These people think only young people watch social media, but it's not. It's older people watching social media, following influencers, playing slot machines. It's all age demographics at this point. Everyone's it's universal. And I think there's also the part of people like to be able to play at their own speed. They like to be able to push the button when they're ready, not wait for somebody else. They want to play faster. They can do that. There's no judgment. There's no sort of, when you're playing blackjack and somebody hits at the wrong time, there's the issue. Like, you just play your own speed, whether it's blackjack, roulette, craps. It's the idea of, I guess it's less sociable, but some people like that. In England, they had those in the bookies. What were they called? Not the ETGs.
AWPs.
The what?
The AWPs.
Yes.
AWPs, yeah, amusement prices, yeah.
Those things are insane.
It's entertainment based.
Yeah, people are just playing like nuts on those machines, and they prefer to go into a casino and playing live games, and it's the same concept, except okay. So here's the big question. So Vegas Paulie C, shout out to Vegas Paulie C, the influencer, you could call him. He convinced me to put some pop craps on the floor here, but at 3, 4, 5 times odds. If I'm not mistaken, we're the only ones in the city that do them at 3. Maybe in the country. He said even in New York, they don't have them at 3, 4, 5 times odds. Even when we told your sales team, they were like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" To his credit, it's been gangbusters, amazing volume on those games. But he said the biggest challenge he's talked to people, because he talks to a lot of people, he said the biggest challenge that is convincing them that those dice are real dice and not RNG. Can you speak to that? Like, are the outcomes on the ETGs not RNG? Is it my question making sense?
Correct.
Then?
Yeah, no, on the dice, depending on so yes, the outcome is completely random. Matter of fact, with that particular dice product you're talking about, if you were to, I don't even know if he knows that, but I'll share something with your audience, is if you touch the button very softly, the dice will bounce maybe an inch off the generator. If you hit the button hard, the dice will jump about 6, 7 inches off. So there's actually a sense of control where how high and how much those dice jump is controlled by the player. So it's under regulatory approval. They're random, completely random. It's not fixed. It's not skill based. It's not anything like that.
You can't control the 7 out when it's time to 7 out. You don't need to, because the math of the game is the math of the game, which is still in your favor. So that's what I was trying to explain to him. There's no reason why I would be able to do that. And I would imagine gaming, but he was convinced that not him, but the people that he talks to think it's, so that's good on this podcast to clear that up. There's no RNG involved in any of the ETGs. Even the blackjack doesn't need to be.
The only place you have some type of an influence is if you start to get into other forms of regulated gaming where they require, you can't, like if you're in a bingo world, there's certain rules. You have to have 2 players on a device at the same time. Otherwise you can't have a game operate. There's certain regs in certain markets, or for example, pay tables. If you're in a VLT market, sometimes you can't have a top prize above a certain amount, or you can't wager more than $5 a spin. So there are variations in the products tied to regulation, but nothing associated with the randomness of the product.
How do you guys incorporate, I guess, guest feedback when you're developing all these, new products? Like, how do you guys get that guest feedback? Because it's on the casino floor. So how do you guys get that feedback on how a machine is? And are you just looking at strictly the numbers?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of different things. One is obviously numbers. We beta test. So we're, 7 years ago, we didn't do much beta testing. We rolled a lot out too quickly and learned the hard way. Now we are adamant that any new product, whether it be a G2E, the products you saw, we'll oftentimes beta test something 2, 3 times before we feel it's ready. Because as you're beta testing, you're learning the player's reaction. So if the player's reacting a certain way, you then need to modify your product until you feel that it's ready to be released. So we find beta testing, and when we beta test, not just beta testing on the Las Vegas Strip, because that's one type of player. It's beta testing in locals markets, regionally. The reaction of craps in the Northeast is very different than the reaction of craps, let's say, in Canada. So you have to beta.
Are they allowed in like California in the tribal casinos? Because they're not allowed regular table games there, right? They've still got the weird roulette with the cards.
Yeah,
so
depending on the tribe's compacts. Some compacts allow for a more flexible interpretation of a live roulette ball or dice. Others don't. But I think what we're hearing, that finally after a decade, I think the new compacts coming up are going to open up ETGs and real roulette balls, and they use cards a lot of times there.
Yeah, everything's on the cards.
I'm hearing again, you don't know until it's done that's going to change.
I'm fascinated completely on a different subject, but how they're now fighting with the sweepstakes casinos which, by the way, are full-blown casinos. I mean, there's no mixing that. They're real casinos, the sweepstakes. How many people work at Interblock now?
Oh, we've bought 3 companies in the past year, so the number keeps evolving. But we bought about a year ago. We bought a Ruse.
Yep. And were they the originals with the pop craps? The
shoot to win. So they had a shoot to win. Yeah, you're right. They
Yeah.
had a multiplayer craps product, which was fantastic. Still love it to this
Yep.
day. It's fantastic.
We still have it on our floor.
It's a staple. It does really well. We then bought another software development company out of Europe for our development efforts. And then most recently, about a month ago, we bought Zoom, which was another ETG company out of Europe that does quite well. So I think we're up to around 800 employees, not including FTEs and third parties. So yeah, compared to the 150 we had when I joined, it's
A few years ago.
Yes.
Have you found it easy to build the team and the culture there?
It's difficult. I mean, these days, especially with COVID, I mean, COVID was a speed bump for everybody because you really had to adjust your employees. A lot of them wanted to, work from home. That whole cultural, I think, change the United States at least went through. I'm
Yep.
not sure, the other countries went through it as much as we did,
Oh,
but
no. I mean, at least for England, they sure did.
work from home, right?
Oh, yeah.
So culturally
In
coming
fact,
out
in
of
England, on a Friday, it's like a weekend in town. People don't go to work on Fridays anymore. It's a 4-day work week in the offices, pretty much.
it's tough, right? Because we were hyper growth. We've been growing at about 35% compounded annual growth rate. When you're growing that fast, you really, and scaling at the same time and dealing with COVID. I mean, anybody tells you they didn't have challenges, they're probably lying to you. So yeah, so coming out of
But
COVID,
it was a boom for people coming out of it for a lot of people. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day. It was like coming out of COVID, it changed their entire business model. Like everyone had that first 90 days of shit. Are we ever going to be back to normal? And whether it doesn't matter what you did, and then suddenly coming out of that, a lot of industries took off and boomed. I mean,
the gaming industry for sure.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We all boomed with the stimulus and so forth. But yet at the same time, employees wanted to work from home. So that part, we finally were at a at-work policy. Everybody comes back to work at Interblock now, and we've worked our way through that evolutionary process. But scaling at that rate for any company is obviously challenging. You have to, when you're in hyper growth, you've got to try to scale, maintain quality and service simultaneously and innovation. So yeah, we continue on a daily basis to work hard to improve.
And what do you see as sort of the next evolution of Interblock? For Interblock, you said iGaming is something you got your eye on, but what do you see as the next evolution of the gaming product on the floor?
I think it's the Amuse. I mean, obviously, we continue to see double-digit growth globally on Interblock's core portfolio of products and innovation. So I don't want to dismiss that. We have tons of innovation that came out of G2E relative to ETGs and attracting new players and growing out that footprint on the floor. I mean, we have several casinos here close to home on the Strip that will, be exceeding 100 seats of ETGs in their floor and going to 150. People, such as Palazzo and Wynn and MGM Caesars, these places doing quite well. But the Amuse category being an entire new area of gaming, if successful, you don't know until you try, but the feedback from G2E, I've not experienced personally before in 30 plus years. We have people ready to sign multiple amusement products, chosen places on their floor, sign the contract. And I say, listen, I can't deliver till June or July a particular product. Like, I'll sign today. Just I want one of the first ones. Please give it to me.
Is it any of the Amuse products or the marbles specifically?
It's a lot of the more, to be fair, we will have the one you mentioned earlier where there was we called it free fall roulette, where you get to drop the roulette ball into that wheel.
Yeah.
That will be ready in Q1. But the bingo game, which was probably the sleeper for us at the show, I can't tell you.
I didn't see it. I'm the king of bingo downtown. Why don't we got to get that first.
The bingo generator was,
I didn't see that.
We've had overwhelming demand for that. That'll come out most likely April, May.
Well, sign us up for that.
That's pretty fun. The marble, we had 2 marble games there. One, I think you saw the marble race. We had another marble game in the stadium. That's
just so people know what we're talking about, there's basically like 8 marbles in a chute. I don't know if there's more than that maybe, but they get dropped and then they race to the bottom and you bet on color marble basically.
Yeah, and the reason we came up with this is if you go online and you go to YouTube, you'd be shocked at the tens of millions of people a year that watch marble racing for leaderboard activity. So games like that, we're going to be coming up a lot more. We have a coin pusher game using real chips we patented. So we'll take Plaza chips, and rather than pushing coins for tickets and going get a stuffed animal, you'll drop $5 chips into a machine that pushes out actual casino chips. And depending what falls off the edge,
by the way, nothing will shock me with what people are watching on YouTube.
It's crazy.
You can watch anything,
crazy,
absolutely anything on YouTube.
Yeah. So we have lots of games like that. The Marble Race is one of those.
Okay. Well, I would like to put my name down for the Marble Race, the bingo game, and I think we're going to be. Is anyone doing the automated craps downtown? I think Al Cortez has it, maybe.
You mean the shoot to win from Aruze?
The one, yeah, the one you guys now putting out
Or
with
the live
dealer.
one.
The live
the live one. Oh, the live.
with the single dealer.
That's a great question. I'd have to check with the team, but on the strip itself, several.
We'd like to be first downtown. No one else is doing it downtown.
Okay, well,
We
great.
should definitely look at doing that.
That'd be great. Yeah, wonderful.
Change things up a little bit.
We're just doing deals right here on the podcast.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think I'm going to take the rest of the day off.
Hey, you made some sales. Yeah. Some leases. No
Yes,
sales.
Lisa.
No
That's
sales.
right. Don't use the 4-letter word.
Do you see anything happening with AI or using VR into any of your gaming?
Absolutely.
Do you see that having a place in the gaming?
So we dipped our toe in the water at G2E. If you looked, we had an immersion area. We call it immersion. That's something we haven't talked about today. It's fascinating. Coming from the slot side of the business, you go onto a casino floor today, it's a little bit overload. The slot machines have gotten so big, impressive, quite frankly, with the colors and the graphics and the animations they use. Looking across the casino floor, it's hard to find your product. Like, where's my space? I think that's a huge advantage for Interblock, actually, because when you see an ETG bundled together in a group on a floor, it's an environment or a stadium. It stands out. So we came up with a concept we call immersion, where we took a group of our machines and their signage, and we have the signs work in unison.
Okay.
Right. So they work together to create an environment. We patented that. And now all of a sudden across this array of colors, you see this oasis that kind of works together and attracts you. We then at the show introduced a little bit of AI where we take that immersion controller and software technology and we start to communicate with the player. So the immersion and controller are attached to the software and it knows if a player just hit a blackjack, is having a nice run. And so we have an AI or a virtual individual that can, on the signage, appear randomly, well, it's actually controlled, and says, hey, great hand, nice blackjack. We can even use motion detectors that when players are walking by casinos and not coming on the casino floor, we can use AI to try and track them to come over and step onto the casino floor, say, hey, would you like to come play? And we see them walking by. So we're starting to look at ways to use this technology to bring new wallet on the floor, interact with them in a very, unintimidating, non-intrusive manner to get them to stay on the device longer or to get them to actually just try the device to begin with.
And these are the traditional ETGs, like the pub craps and the roulette,
Yep.
but with the digital walls in between each cabinet.
Correct. And working together.
That's how you create your own little oasis
Correct.
between these pods. Yeah,
That's
I
correct.
love this.
So we're doing a little bit of that. Dipping our toe. I would not call it AI, but it's definitely starting to look at how we can.
But the quality of the game that you were talking about is just phenomenal. I mean, there's very little innovation happening today in terms of the games and not ETGs, slots. They're all just copying each other in terms of the play mechanics, but the quality of the screens and the digital art is unbelievable.
Coming from the slot side, in defense of the major slot operators, I think that they have been inundated, as would anybody, in evolving their companies to the online space. Because before, not that long ago, less than 10 years ago, you had online companies and you had traditional gaming companies that were suppliers. And you now see this integration happening. And a lot of the traditional slot suppliers are evolving to the online space aggressively at the moment. And that's daunting. That's a huge undertaking because you're competing against companies that have been in that space for decades. So that takes a lot of innovation, a lot of work to take your best practices, your content, and get it online correctly. So I think a lot of energy has been placed there, which is good for the industry. As Interblock, I chose not to go online initially. I really focused on the traditional casino space. I wasn't big enough to tackle two things. So because of that, we've been able to innovate, from a land-based perspective. Although starting in 2025, 26, 27, we will also begin to dip our toe into the online world and migrate, hopefully while sustaining our innovation.
You know, one of the things we should talk about actually is, now that I think about it, on the ETGs, a problem we had, and maybe you've heard this at other places, I don't know, is we turned off the points and the free play on those games because people were betting both sides. So they were doing that and then just trying to basically run up their points. But maybe if the ETGs had, because I think it's a shame to penalize people for not being able to get points on those games. Do other people turn off those functionalities?
They do. I mean, they do, because it's more of a legacy mentality. We've improved technology over the past 5 years dramatically that, if you were to bet roulette black and red, you can't do that anymore, right?
Okay.
The system
you can't?
Yeah,
Oh,
the system
good.
recognizes it. But, like anything, I mean, there's always people that will try to, especially in automated games, work the system and get extra points. On the live games, much more difficult, almost impossible, quite frankly, with the smart pit. So I agree with you. I think it's a shame that players are being penalized because the technology exists now to protect you as a casino.
That. Although I'm sure the math nerds, not nerds, but the math genius out there, genies, will tell me that if you bet red and black, when the 0 hits, you're still going to win more than they're making on the points. So actually let them do that. But for whatever reason, the house has always stopped people trying to take advantage of that. But that actually isn't a great advantage play, apparently.
And some casinos will say they just, they say when the single and double 0 hit, that's where they make it all back, right? But
awesome. Well, as we kind of start to wrap up, and again, we appreciate your time. Is there any type of, and we ask this to everybody, words of wisdom or advice you'd love to give to people looking to get into the gaming side, or just general life advice you'd like to give to our
career
listeners?
Advice, people in the industry, or any predictions? You already made a prediction that we can go back and check in the next 36 months.
If I was coming out of college today, I would definitely be thinking about, where is the gaming trending over the next 10 years, and make sure I'm hitting something on the upswing, not on the downswing. I think we'd all agree that if you're going to come into the gaming sector, part of your portfolio needs to involve online. If you're not thinking online, and that's a broad definition, you're probably missing the mark. And whether you're coming out of college or you're myself, running a gaming company, whether it be a supply side or an operator, if you're not thinking about online, if you're not thinking about technology and how you're going to bridge that gap. And again, I use New Jersey and Michigan as case studies. It's fascinating. I mean, New Jersey and Michigan online create the same revenue as the traditional land-based sector of the gaming space in less than 4 years, what took decades. So if you're not, and this is the United States of America, this isn't, we're talking about Europe or Asia, we're talking about New Jersey and Michigan. I think it's just a message that we need to be thinking about that broad terminology of omnichannel, and how are we going to be involved as an industry, and when that migration happens, which it's going to make sure we're on the right side of the curve and not on the wrong side. And that's where I spend a lot of my time thinking.
Well, I want to give you a shout out. You've done a great job with Interblock, incredible innovation, incredible product. Really, you go down to our floor, we have a ton of your stuff down there as we just walk together. But something really stood out. About a year ago, we were opening a new smoke-free casino area, and we had some ETGs going there with you guys, and we were somehow delayed with our construction, and the whole thing was a bit of a mess. And I called your cell phone, and I don't know where you were, but within a couple of hours, the whole thing was rectified and remedied, and we were up and running. And that shows what kind of a great operator you are, hands-on you are, and I appreciate what you've accomplished with Interblock and in this town. So thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love, rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself @Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.